I never imagined the child I gave my life to would one day pretend I didn't exist. I raised her alone, gave up everything, and now she tells people I'm dead. I was 26 when I walked out of the operating room and never returned. I was a surgeon on the cusp of a promising career, fast-tracked to a fellowship at Stanford. Research published in The Lancet. My name whispered in hospital halls like I was someone to watch. But then came the phone call that changed everything. My mother was gone, and my baby girl had no one else. Her father, long vanished into the wind like a bad promise. So I did what I thought any decent mother would. I came home. I traded 12-hour shifts and adrenaline for formula, midnight fevers, and daycare drop-offs. I told myself it was temporary, just until she was old enough. But months turned into years. Opportunities faded. The medical world moved on without me. Still, I never regretted it. Not for a second. I watched her grow. I taught her to read. I clapped the loudest at every school play, made every science fair volcano, and scraped together the last bits of our savings to buy her that ridiculous cello she swore would change her life. When she got into Columbia, I cried. When she graduated, I nearly passed out from pride. My daughter first in our family to get a degree. It all felt worth it. Then came the silence. It started small. She didn't return my calls as often. Visits home became rare. I chalked it up to adulthood. She was building her life. I didn't want to be clingy. But the real punch in the gut came 2 months ago. I was at the pharmacy when I ran into Mrs. Kaplan, a sweet old neighbor who used to babysit my daughter back when I was juggling part-time jobs to keep the lights on. She smiled, asked how my granddaughter was doing in New York. Granddaughter? No, I corrected. My daughter lives there, though. She's working at a law firm. Mrs. Kaplan blinked. Oh, I must have misunderstood. I saw her profile on LinkedIn the other day. Said she was raised by her aunt. And sorry, I just thought it was odd it listed both her parents as deceased. I laughed at first. Thought it was some kind of error. But when I looked it up, there it was. My daughter, my flesh and blood, had rewritten her entire history. Said she was orphaned. Said she grew up overcoming poverty and abandonment. No mention of me. Just glowing tributes to the aunt, who only ever took her for ice cream twice. I sat there staring at the screen, my hands shaking so hard I could barely scroll. I clicked through photos of her smiling with people I'd never met, calling them her real family. I couldn't breathe. I felt like someone had punched a hole in my chest. The next day I called. No answer. I texted. No reply. So I sent her a message saying I'd seen her profile and was confused. I tried to be calm, not accusatory. She finally responded 2 days later. Mom, I think it's best if we have some space. I've had to create healthy boundaries, and honestly, your presence in my life is complicated. My colleagues wouldn't understand. You wouldn't understand. I read it 5 times before I could even process the words. Complicated. Like I was a mess she needed to scrub from her image. Like I was a stain. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell the world how I scraped together lunch money. How I slept on couches so she could have her own room. How I gave up saving lives to save her. But I didn't scream. I sat in silence. Because what can you say when the person you raised doesn't even see you as real? Then last week, a mutual friend, someone from my daughter's high school, reached out. She sent me a link to a podcast. My daughter had been featured on an episode called Breaking Cycles. I listened. Every word was a knife. She talked about escaping a toxic environment. About how her single mom used guilt like a weapon. About how she rebuilt herself from nothing. None of it was true. Or maybe to her it was. She said, I had to cut off the anchor to finally sail. The anchor. That was me. It hurt more than childbirth. More than losing my career. More than anything life had ever thrown at me. And here's the worst part, one still love her. I still keep her baby photos by my bed. I still bake her favorite lemon bars every Sunday like I used to when she'd come home from school crying. I still hope that one day she'll come back. But now I wonder, was it all for nothing? Did I raise a stranger? That question haunts me. And what do you do when the person who owes you the most thanks looks at you like you're something shameful? Am I the villain in her story? Am I the anchor she needed to cut loose? I didn't cry the night I heard that podcast. I sat in the dark, listening to her voice play over and over, trying to reconcile the woman she'd become with the child I raised. I kept thinking about the time she broke her wrist falling off the monkey bars and how she clung to me like I was the only thing tethering her to safety. I was her whole world once. Now I was her cautionary tale. 3 days later I got a letter in the mail. No return address. No note. Just a photo. An old one. Standing in front of the apartment we used to rent. Her in my arms. Both of us smiling. Cheeks full of dollar store cotton candy. The kind of moment you want to frame. On the back, someone had written in pen, "You should know the truth. E." I stared at it for a long time. Who the hell was he? The only I could think of was Eli C. girl my daughter used to be friends with in high school. They were inseparable for a while. Then something happened. One day they were glued at the hip, the next Elise was gone, her name never mentioned again. I found her on Facebook. She still had the same smirk, same messy auburn hair. She looked older, sure, but she was unmistakable. I sent a message. I didn't expect a reply. But she did. 2 hours later, a reply popped up. "I've wanted to talk to you for years. Can I call?" When the phone rang, her voice was cautious, like she didn't know how much I could handle. "Miss Carter, I don't know how to say this, but I think your daughter's been telling a version of her life that isn't just ungrateful, it's dangerous." She hesitated. Then she told me everything. Apparently, when my daughter got to college, she reinvented herself. She joined an elite student group for first-generation orphans, spun a narrative about surviving abuse and abandonment, and started dating someone whose own family had a tragic story. According to Elise, it became addictive. The attention, the praise, the bravery of it all. "She used to get so mad if anyone mentioned you," Elise said. "She'd twist it. Say you were mentally unstable. That you manipulated her. It wasn't just omission. She rewrote history." I sat there, the phone hot in my hand, and let those words wash over me. It would have been easier if Elise had been cruel or accusatory. But she wasn't. Her voice was full of pity. She knew what I'd sacrificed. Said she used to admire it. But apparently, that kind of story didn't get you internships or TED Talks. Tragedy did. She even told one of her professors you tried to kill yourself and left her alone for days. That's how she got her extension on the LSAT. I had to put the phone down. It wasn't just about being forgotten now. It was worse. I was being weaponized. The next morning I called a lawyer. I didn't want money. I didn't want revenge. But I did want to know. Was there anything I could do to get my name back? She said no. There was no crime in a lie unless it defamed you publicly or cost you income. But I'm her mother. I could barely keep the desperation out of my voice. She's saying I'm dead. That I abused her. I understand, the lawyer said gently. But unless she names you publicly and causes harm to your reputation or income, it's technically her narrative. Not illegal. Just morally bankrupt. I hung up numb. For the next week I didn't leave the house. I couldn't. Everywhere I went I saw her. Her first ballet recital. The day she lost her first tooth. That time we both got the flu and slept on the bathroom floor together. Whispering jokes between sips of ginger ale. I still had all her drawings. Her childhood toys. The handmade card she gave me for my 40th birthday that said, "You are the reason I believe in miracles." Was that all a lie too? But then something strange happened. A package arrived. No name. Just a plain white box. Inside was a flash drive. And a note. "You don't know me, but I knew you. I'm sorry for what she did. You deserve to hear what she's been saying in private." This was recorded 2 months ago. The clip was grainy audio only. A recording of a dinner party, laughter, clinking glasses, and then her voice to me daughter's clear as a bell. Honestly, I don't even think she'd recognize me anymore. She lives in this little nowhere town, probably still baking lemon bars like it's 2005. I mean, what was I supposed to do? Tell my bosses my mom lives in a duplex and folds laundry for her neighbors to make ends meet? Please. Laughter followed. Not from strangers, from her. My daughter. She wasn't just ashamed of me. She was mocking me. I sat still for a long time. Hours maybe. Something inside me broke, but not the way you'd expect. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was clarity. For so long I believed the pain was the price of love. That sacrifice meant nothing without recognition. That motherhood was defined by being needed. But maybe that's not true. Maybe it's defined by what you give, not what you get. So I started packing. Not with bitterness. With purpose. Every drawing, every baby photo, every birthday card, he boxed them up. Not to throw away, but to release. She didn't want them? Fine. But they would no longer weigh down my shelves or my soul. Then I did something wild. I reopened my old email from residency. Somehow, miraculously, it still worked. I wrote to Dr. Singh, my old mentor. I didn't expect a reply. Not after nearly 2 decades. But she answered. Are you kidding, Catherine? Of course I remember you. You were one of the best. What happened? I told her the truth. Some of it. Enough of it. She offered me something I hadn't expected. A chance to return. Not as a surgeon but as a research consultant. She said the hospital had launched a mentorship program for late career professionals re-entering the medical world. Said I could start part-time. Remote. I stared at that email like it was a lifeline. Because it was. The next week I accepted. I bought new notebooks. I cleaned out my closet. I took a long walk around the lake where I used to push her stroller. I let the wind hit my face. It didn't feel like morning anymore. It felt like motion. A week after that I got a message. From her. Just a few words. I heard you talk to Elise. You really couldn't let it go, could you? I didn't respond. Another message followed. You're embarrassing me. You always do this. Always make yourself the victim. I stared at the screen. My hands didn't tremble this time. I wrote one line back. You can rewrite your story if you want. But you don't get to erase mine. No reply. But I didn't need one. I had spent too many years waiting for a thank you, a hug, a moment of clarity that might never come. And now? Now I had something better. A new beginning. And maybe, just maybe, for the first time in 20 years I was free. A month passed. I didn't hear from her again. Not on my birthday. Not on Mother's Day. Not even after the local paper ran a small feature on the hospital's new mentorship program, with my name tucked near the bottom. Dr. Catherine Carter, returning to research after a sabbatical, brings over 15 years of experience. I hadn't expected her to read it. But someone else did. One evening as I was organizing some files at home, a knock came at the door. Not urgent. Just persistent. I opened it expecting a neighbor, maybe someone needing help with a printer or package. Instead it was her. Standing on my porch, face pale, eyes wide with something between disbelief and panic. I saw the article, she said. You're going back? To medicine. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time in nearly a year. She was thinner. Not sickly, just brittle. Her hair was styled differently, her coat expensive, her shoes the kind I used to dream of affording. She looked every bit the part she'd built. Sophisticated. Polished. A success story. But her hands were shaking. Why are you here? I asked, my voice low. Even. Calm in a way I hadn't felt around her in years. She swallowed. I didn't think you'd actually do it. I didn't think you'd come back. I tilted my head. Come back to what? To being you. That stopped me. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. I didn't want this conversation bleeding into my home, into the quiet space I had rebuilt from ruins. She looked down at her shoes. I thought once I left you'd just stay where I put you. Where you put me? I repeated. Her eyes snapped up and for a moment I saw the girl I used to know. The one who used to cry in my arms after a spelling bee loss. The one who once told me, I want to be just like you, Mom. Brave. You don't understand, she said suddenly, voice sharp, brittle. They all had these stories. Everyone I met, trauma, survival, grit. I had to be someone to make it. You don't get it. No one wanted to hear about some middle-aged mom in Ohio who packed lunches and worked 3 jobs. That doesn't get you the seat at the table. So you made me dead. The words weren't bitter. Just tired. She winced. It wasn't supposed to be forever. I just needed a way in. And now? She didn't answer. Instead, she sank down onto the steps of the porch and buried her face in her hands. I didn't know how to fix it. It snowballed. Every time I told the story it got bigger, and I couldn't walk it back. I stood in silence. The weight of her words, what they didn't contain, hung heavy in the air. No apology. Just excuses. Finally, she looked up again. They invited me to speak at a conference next month. Keynote. On resilience. Of course they had. And they want to meet my aunt. The one who raised me. I raised an eyebrow. So you came here. What? To ask me to pretend? She bit her lip. No. God no. I panicked. I didn't know who else to talk to. Something in me broke then, not like glass but like ice melting in spring. Slowly. Inevitably. I'm not angry, I said quietly. Not anymore. She blinked. You're not. No. I was. For a long time. But now. I just feel sorry for you. Her jaw tightened but she said nothing. I gave you everything I had, I continued. And I did it because I loved you. Not for credit. Not for applause. But you threw me away like I was your shame. Like I was something to survive. She looked away, eyes glistening. You could have been proud of where you came from, I added. Instead you erased it. Erased me. I didn't mean to hurt you. That doesn't mean you didn't. She nodded slowly, a tear finally slipping down her cheek. For a long while we just sat in the quiet of the evening. The cicadas buzzed in the distance. A breeze stirred the wind chimes near the garage. Finally she whispered, What do I do now? I shook my head. That's not my question to answer anymore. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Then quietly, Do you hate me? I sighed. I don't think I ever could. But I don't know if I trust you. She stood up. Slowly. Like her limbs were heavier than they used to be. I don't know how to come back from this, she said. Maybe, I replied. You don't come back. Maybe you go forward. She nodded again, this time with a strange kind of acceptance. She turned to leave but paused at the bottom of the steps. Would it be okay if I sent you something? She asked. What kind of something? I don't know yet. Just something honest. I nodded once. I'd like that. And then she left. I didn't expect anything. Not a letter. Not an apology. Not even a change of heart. But 2 weeks later I received a package. Inside, her conference speech. Typed. Unsent. Unread by anyone else. It was titled, The Real Story. She started by admitting the lies. One by one. Not just to me but to the world. She described me in detail. How I'd woken up at 4 a.m. to make sure she had breakfast before tests. How I'd sat beside her through every flu, every heartbreak, every triumph and fall. And then at the end she wrote, I was not raised by a myth. I was raised by a woman who gave up her name so I could find mine. And I erased her. I want to say her name now loud and clear. My mother is Catherine Carter. And I am the woman I am because of her. I cried when I read it. Not because it fixed everything. But because for the first time she told the truth. And that mattered. I didn't know what would happen next. Whether she'd deliver that speech. Whether she'd walk away from the fantasy she'd built and finally reclaim her own history. But I did know this. I was no longer a ghost in her story. I was real. And I was still standing. 2 months later, I was standing in the back of a grand conference hall in New York City, surrounded by people who had no idea who I was. My name wasn't on the guest list. I wasn't invited. I wore a simple navy dress, the same one I used to wear to her school functions, the one she once said made me look important. I didn't come to be seen. I came to see. I watched her from afar as she adjusted the microphone on stage, the lights soft behind her. She looked calm, steady, but I knew that posture. That breath she took before speaking. That barely visible tremor in her hands. That was mine. She scanned the audience once, just a brief sweep, then began. I came here today to talk about resilience. But I want to start by confessing something. A few murmurs rose, curious, confused. For years, she continued, voice firm but raw, I built my career on a version of my life that wasn't true. I said I was an orphan. I said I grew up alone, scraping by on the kindness of strangers. That's not what happened. Now the room was silent. She looked down briefly, then back up. The truth is, I had a mother. A woman who gave up her entire world for me. who slept on couches and worked shifts she didn't tell me about just so I could have shoes that fit. She was a surgeon. A good one. But when I needed her, she stepped away from everything she'd built to raise me. Someone in the audience let out a quiet gasp. She kept going. I erased her because I thought it made me more compelling. Because struggle sells. Because I was scared that the world wouldn't be impressed by a woman who packed lunches and read bedtime stories. I thought no one would care about a life built on love and sacrifice. I was wrong. My throat tightened and I blinked hard. But I didn't cry. Not yet. She's here today. Not as my guest. She didn't know I'd speak these words. I didn't invite her up front because, frankly, I didn't know if she'd even come. She looked toward the back of the room. Our eyes met. The air shifted. I want you all to know her name, she said, louder now, stronger. Her name is Dr. Catherine Carter. She's the reason I'm alive. The reason I'm educated. The reason I've become anything at all. The room turned, hundreds of eyes finding mine. My feet stayed rooted. She raised her hand toward me slightly, not an invitation, not a plea. Just acknowledgement. And in that moment something happened. The room applauded. Not for her speech. Not for the act. Not for the performance. They were applauding truth. I didn't walk forward. I didn't wave. I simply nodded once and stepped quietly outside. The sun was warm on my skin, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. She found me outside 20 minutes later. She didn't say anything at first. Just stood there. Then, I didn't know if you'd come. I almost didn't, I said. But I needed to hear it. Not for you. For me. She nodded slowly. I know. We stood there, two women with a canyon of silence between them. But the wind began to fill it, slowly, gently, with something that felt like possibility. I meant every word, she said. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted the world to know the truth. I owed you that. You owed yourself that, I replied. Silence again. And then something I hadn't felt in years. Her arms. She hugged me, tentative at first, like she didn't know if she was allowed to, but then she held on tighter. And I did too. Not to the past. Not to the pain. To this moment. This beginning. Over the next few weeks we talked more. Not every day. Not about everything. We weren't trying to recreate what we lost. That was gone. But we were building something new. From the ground up. Honest. Fragile. Real. She sent me the official recording of her speech. It went viral. Thousands of comments poured in. Some criticized her. Others praised her courage for coming clean. But one comment stuck with me more than any other. It read, "Sometimes it takes losing your foundation to realize who built it." She lost her way for a long time. And I lost faith for a while too. But now we walk forward not as the perfect mother or the perfect daughter. Just as two women who finally told the truth. And somehow that's enough. Because real love isn't about being remembered perfectly. It's about being seen. And now finally I am.